House of the Dragon takes place roughly 200 years before Game of Thrones, when House Targaryen ruled Westeros. At this point in the timeline, they were at the height of their power, and there were almost 20 dragons flying around, most of which had riders, like Princess Rhaenyra Targaryen, who rides Syrax. She is the only daughter to the king, Viserys Targaryen, who is the kind of guy who just wants everyone to have a good time, but struggles to make the hard decisions. The main issue he struggles with is having a male heir to inherit the Iron Throne. Currently, Rhaenyra is his only child, and Westeros does not really recognize the right for women to inherit, so the throne by law should pass to the king's younger brother, Daemon Targaryen. Daemon is a bit of a loose unit. He currently commands the City Watch and brutally deals with criminals. Because of this cruelty, some members of the king's small council are worried if he becomes king, he would be like Maegor the Cruel. Leading the anti-Daemon sentiment is the king's hand, Otto Hightower. But Viserys has the issue all sorted. He and his wife, Aemma Arryn, await the arrival of a newborn son. Although they have tried and failed to have children since Rhaenyra, Viserys is convinced he will have a son destined to wear the crown of Aegon the Conqueror. Viserys is so sure because of a dream he had. Some members of House Targaryen experience dragon dreams, which are prophetic visions of the future steeped in symbolism. Historically, these dreams have been difficult to interpret, and the dreamer almost never correctly interprets them. To celebrate the arrival, Viserys has planned a lavish tourney. Daemon Targaryen is the favorite to win, but ends up being defeated by Sir Criston Cole, more on him later. While the tourney rages, the birth does not go well, with both Aemma and the child dying, leaving Viserys distraught. While the family grieves, Daemon sinks into his cups, allegedly making some insensitive remarks. News of Daemon's words make their way back to Otto Hightower, who twists them a little bit and reports them back to the king. Viserys summons Daemon, essentially disinheriting him from the Iron Throne, and banishes him from the city. Viserys then names his daughter, Princess Rhaenyra, as his heir, and the High Lords of the realm swear oaths to Rhaenyra. Exiled from King's Landing, Daemon takes up residence on Dragonstone, the ancestral seat of House Targaryen, which was typically held by the heir apparent. After months of essentially squatting, Daemon decides to stir the pot, sneaking back into King's Landing to steal an egg from the dragon pit. Otto takes a small retinue to claim the egg, and right when it looks like Daemon is going to feed them to his dragon Caraxes, Rhaenyra arrives. Daemon does not want to harm his niece, and actually kind of likes her, maybe a bit too much. Despite having named Rhaenyra as his heir, the small council convince King Viserys that his line is under threat, and it would be a good idea to have a few spares around. This all might help with the whole Daemon problem, so they convince him to remarry. Viserys' master of ships, Corlys Velaryon, comes up with a great proposal and offers his daughter's hand to the king. On paper, this is a fantastic offer, as Corlys is married to Rhaenys Targaryen, Viserys' cousin who was passed over decades earlier, despite Rhaenys being the eldest child of Jaehaerys' eldest son. This choice has caused a bit of a tension between the two branches of House Targaryen, and a marriage between the two branches would be a great way to unite the house once again. There's only one problem. Corlys and Rhaenys' daughter, Laena, is extremely young, and Viserys becomes uncomfortable and gets cold feet. But there is another option. Under the direction of her father, Alicent Hightower has been comforting King Viserys after the death of Aemma. Otto low-key hopes that by Alicent spending time with the king, he will select her as his second wife, and the gambit pays off. The only problem with this is Alicent and Rhaenyra are best friends. Marrying your best friend's dad breaks almost every friendship code under the sun, but the king has spoken and the pair are married. Corlys Velaryon, a prideful man, takes the rejection of his daughter badly and resigns as master of ships. 2 years later, Alicent and Viserys have a son, Aegon. Aegon threatens Rhaenyra's inheritance, as most of Westeros would prefer a male ruler over a female. This frustrates Rhaenyra, but Viserys reaffirms her as his heir. Meanwhile, Corlys Velaryon has recruited Daemon, and the pair have been warring against the Crab Feeder, a pirate who has been destroying and looting Corlys' ships in the Narrow Sea. Originally, Corlys had asked the king for help in dealing with the matter, but Viserys did not want to risk open war. Despite Daemon riding Caraxes and Laenor Velaryon, Corlys' son, riding the dragon Sea Smoke, the war is not going well, and they are on the brink of defeat. As they are discussing potential strategies, a group sent by King Viserys arrive with a message for Daemon. Viserys is ready to help out with the war and is sending ships to aid Daemon and Corlys. While most people would view help from a sibling as a good thing, Daemon believes that if Viserys helps to win the war, all the glory would be attributed to the king. So Daemon commits some light war crimes, surrendering under a false flag, only to ambush the Crab Feeder and his forces with Sea Smoke and the remaining Velaryons. Daemon kills the Crab Feeder off-screen and the war is won. Back in Westeros, Rhaenyra has been traveling across the realm in search of a suitable husband, but most of her suitors are too young or too old. Frustrated, she cuts her tour short and returns to King's Landing. Daemon has also returned wearing a crown of his own. After he defeated the crab feeder, Daemon was named King of the Narrow Sea, but Daemon renounces it and presents the crown to King Viserys, effectively repairing the relationship between the brothers, at least for now. Like most things that Daemon does, the offering has an ulterior motive, and in the evening he sneaks out with Rhaenyra to have a night of revelry. Their debauchery ends at a brothel, where Daemon makes out with his niece, but cuts the session short, leaving Rhaenyra lusting. When she gets back to the Red Keep, she seduces Criston Cole, who was made a Kingsguard at her choosing years earlier. Although Cole initially resists, as banging the princess is a big no-no, he ultimately gives in to his desire and they clap cheeks. However, King's Landing is filled with spies, and news reaches Otto Hightower of Rhaenyra and Daemon's activities. Otto sees this as an opportunity and informs the king. Otto low-key hopes that casting doubts upon Rhaenyra will lead to her being disinherited, which in turn would lead to his grandson Aegon possibly being named king, but instead it leads to Viserys confronting Daemon. It seems that Daemon wanted to be caught, hoping that the rumors about Rhaenyra would limit her potential suitors. Daemon leverages the rumors to ask for Rhaenyra's hand, but Vizzy isn't having it and banishes Daemon yet again. Viserys speaks to Rhaenyra on the matter, but she denies it and flips the script by asking where did Viserys hear the rumor. Viserys finally recognizes that Otto will always be biased towards Aegon, and his self-serving interests go too far, so Vizzy fires Otto as Hand of the King. As Otto is leaving King's Landing, he warns Alicent that Rhaenyra is not a friend, but a rival to Alicent's child Aegon, who threatens Rhaenyra's claim on the Iron Throne. With all of the drama, Viserys makes the executive decision and betroths Rhaenyra to Laenor Velaryon. This is a great move, as it repairs the relationship between Corlys and Viserys, and also unites Rhaenys' branch of House Targaryen back with the main branch. There's only one problem with this: Laenor is gay, but Rhaenyra has a solution and makes a deal with Laenor. This is a political marriage, so Laenor can keep his boyfriend so long as Rhaenyra is free to pursue her own lover, Criston Cole. Laenor agrees and plans are made for the wedding. When Rhaenyra tells Cole of the new arrangement, Cole flips out. He has broken so many oaths just to be her secret side piece. Instead, he wants to run off to Essos, where the two can be together forever, but Rhaenyra doesn't want that. Rhaenyra and Laenor's wedding is filled with drama. Daemon returns from banishment as a single man. This entire time, he's been married to Rhea Royce, but not anymore after he assassinated her in a brutal manner, which has left him as an eligible bachelor. Daemon still lusts for Rhaenyra, but shows interest in Laenor Velaryon, Corlys' other child. More on this later. Meanwhile, Alicent has discovered that Rhaenyra lied to her about losing her virginity after Criston Cole spilled the beans. This prompts Alicent to go full anti-Rhaenyra. She arrives at the wedding in a green dress, green being the color the Hightowers light to call the banners to war. Clearly lines are being formed between the two sides of House Targaryen. Laenor and Joffrey deduce that Cole is Rhaenyra's secret lover, so Joffrey speaks with the Kingsguard suggesting he knows about him and Rhaenyra, and low-key blackmails Cole, which leads to Cole brutally murdering Joffrey in the middle of the wedding, putting a real dampener on the celebrations. While Cole retreats to the Godswood ready to Tommen himself, Alicent interrupts, giving Cole a look, implying that she can get him out of any punishment so long as he devotes himself to her. Meanwhile, Laenor and Rhaenyra tie the knot. 10 years pass and the two have maintained their open marriage. Rhaenyra has found a new secret lover in Harwin Strong, and together they have had 3 children: Jacaerys, Lucerys, and now Joffrey. The only problem with this is that Laenor is supposed to be their father, but they look nothing like him. Most of the realm know that they are bastards, but no one wants to acknowledge the truth. Least of all King Viserys, who is now missing an arm and looks a lot worse for wear after the disease he contracted from the Iron Throne in episode 1 has slowly been killing him. However, Alicent is determined to seek the truth of Rhaenyra's children. In her eyes, it is unfair that she has to dutifully bang this rotting king, but Rhaenyra can get her cheeks clapped by whoever she wants without consequence. Viserys and Alicent have had a couple more children too: Aegon, Aemond, and Helena. Viserys wants his boys and Rhaenyra's to grow up together, in the hope that they form lasting bonds that might prevent any future rivalries between the two sides of the house. Most of these new Targaryen children have dragons, but unlike the rest, Aemond is yet to claim one. Because of this, he is mocked and ridiculed by his brother and nephews, so Aemond decides enough is enough and ventures below the dragon pit to claim a dragon, but it goes terribly wrong and he almost gets roasted. The boys are all trained by Criston Cole, but he greatly favors Alicent's kids over Rhaenyra's. Even after 10 years, he still holds a grudge against the princess and has grown close with Alicent. During a sparring session, Cole allows Aegon to wail on the much younger Lucerys. Harwin Strong, who is secretly Luke's father steps in to break up the fight, but Cole baits him into low-key confirming that Harwin is in fact Luke and Jace's father. The incident brings attention to Rhaenyra and her children. Lionel Strong, who has been Hand of the King since Otto was fired, tries to quit, but Viserys doesn't let him. Instead, Lionel is granted permission to escort his son Harwin back to Harrenhal in order to separate Harwin from Rhaenyra. Alicent is pissed off at the whole situation. After all, her father was fired for a similar reason. She vents to Larys Strong. Alicent says that she wishes her dad could come back as Hand of the King, and Larys says say no more and orchestrates the death of his father and brother, but maintains the relationship with Larys Strong, and in exchange for feet pics, she gains access to Larys's spy network throughout King's Landing. In the last 10 years, Daemon has married Laenor Velaryon, and together they have had 2 girls. Laena now rides Vhagar, and together they have a nice little life away from Westeros. Daemon likes to be free from the politics of Westeros, but Laena, who is pregnant, wishes to return to Driftmark. Unfortunately, childbirth in Game of Thrones is rarely easy, and there are complications leading to Laena going out by dragonfire. On Driftmark, all of House Targaryen reunite for Laena's funeral. Having both lost loved ones, Rhaenyra and Daemon find comfort in each other and officially clap cheeks. Meanwhile, Aemond, who is sick of being the lame relative, enacts a wild plan and claims Vhagar, the largest Targaryen dragon alive at the time. Baela and Rhaena don't like this and recruit Jace and Luke to confront whoever stole their mother's dragon. A fight breaks out and Aemond ragdolls the lot of them. Just when it looks like he is going to become a Kingslayer, Jace whips out the pocket sand, allowing his brother to slash Aemond with a knife. Aemond loses an eye in the process. From all of the commotion, the entire family is woken up. Alicent goes full revenge mode, demanding an eye for an eye, but Rhaenyra defends her boy getting cut in the process. Rhaenyra finally realizes that she needs some allies in order to defend her claim, so she decides to marry Daemon. The only problem is Laenor is still alive, so they hatch a plan to fake Laenor's death so that he can sail off into the sunset with his boyfriend. This allows niece and uncle to finally wed full-on Valyrian style. However, pretty much everyone suspects that Daemon and Rhaenyra had Laenor killed. While this rumor spreads fear amongst their enemies, it also pisses off House Velaryon, who begin to distance themselves from Daemon and Rhaenyra. 6 years pass, and Daemon and Rhaenyra have 2 children with a third on the way. Meanwhile, Corlys Velaryon has been warring in the Stepstones. Turns out the Triarchy have re-emerged. In the fighting, Corlys is wounded, and it is unclear if he is going to survive. His brother Vaemond decides this is his chance to claim Driftmark. The current heir is Rhaenyra's second son Lucerys, but the entire realm can see that he is a bastard, so by rights he has no claim to the seat. Vaemond teams up with Alicent and Otto to name him as the new heir. Otto as Hand of the King and Alicent as Queen now essentially run the kingdom after Viserys' sickness has left him weak. Rhaenyra rushes to King's Landing to prevent the claim being approved. After all, if Luke is revealed to be a bastard, her firstborn son Jacaerys would also be outed, meaning she would have no trueborn children to inherit, and might convince some that Aegon, Alicent's firstborn, is the true heir. Rhaenyra pleads with Viserys to help her out, but Vizzy T is hopped up on painkillers and is a bit cooked, so instead Rhaenyra tries to convince Rhaenys to back her son's claim. She offers to wed both of her sons to Rhaenys' granddaughters. However, Rhaenys still thinks that Rhaenyra and Daemon had her son Laenor killed, so why would she help them? Just when all hope seems to be lost, Rhaenyra's dad comes through and makes an epic walk to the Iron Throne to make the ruling. This throws Alicent and Otto's plan out the window as Vizzy T overrules them, but ultimately he allows Rhaenys to make the decision. Rhaenys is stunned by the turn of events, but ultimately takes Rhaenyra up on her offer and says Luke should inherit, but Vaemond is pissed off. In the heat of his argument, Vaemond names Rhaenyra's children as bastards, leading to Old Man Viserys ordering Vaemond's tongue be removed. Instead, Daemon takes Vaemond's head. The public execution is followed by a wholesome family dinner. Viserys makes a dying effort to repair the rift between Rhaenyra's family and his family with Alicent, and it kind of works. Alicent and Rhaenyra begin to patch things up. Viserys looks on at his family united, but the look soon fades and the pain of his disease returns, so he is taken to bed. The mood quickly shifts, and it is clear that Rhaenyra and Alicent's feud has been taken up by the new generation. Aemon makes a speech mocking his nephews as Strongs, and a fight breaks out. Daemon diffuses the conflict with a look, but it is clear that Aemon and him are destined for a confrontation. Rhaenyra takes the children back to Dragonstone and plans to return to further patch things up with Alicent. However, in the night, Viserys rambles about Aegon being king. Alicent hears this and thinks that it means Viserys wants their son Aegon to be king. Viserys soon dies. The Greens, who largely rule King's Landing, keep the king's death a secret so that Aegon can be crowned before Rhaenyra can react. But there's only one problem: Aegon is nowhere to be found. He's a bit of a party animal and has snuck out. This begins a bit of a lame chase to locate him. If Otto's men find Aegon before Alicent's, he will be able to influence Aegon to have Rhaenyra and her children killed. But if Alicent finds him, she can influence Aegon to take a peaceful approach. Throughout the search, it is revealed that Aegon is a terrible person who enjoys watching children fight in underground fighting pits. Eventually, Aemond and Cole apprehend Aegon, and Alicent can hopefully exert her more peaceful influence over him. Aegon is crowned with the Conqueror's crown and gifted the sword of Aegon I. These symbols of power are a nice bit of propaganda to convince the masses that Aegon II is like the Conqueror come again. In the middle of the ceremony, Rhaenys and Meleys burst through the floor. Although they have a chance to end the war before it even begins, they choose instead to escape to Dragonstone and warn Rhaenyra. When Rhaenys warns Daemon and Rhaenyra, all hell breaks loose, and Rhaenyra goes into premature labor. Meanwhile, Daemon is planning the war he's been waiting for his entire life. Rhaenyra still wants a peaceful resolution, so sends Jace to ensure Daemon doesn't do anything too reckless. Unfortunately, Rhaenyra ends up losing the child. At the funeral, the Kingsguard Eric shows up with the crown of Viserys, and Rhaenyra is finally crowned and made queen. Otto soon arrives at Dragonstone, offering peace to Rhaenyra, but his terms would mean that Aegon is to remain king, while Rhaenyra would be left to Dragonstone. Daemon wants to kill Otto there and then, but Rhaenyra says she will think on the matter. While Rhaenyra evaluates her options, Corlys Velaryon returns. Turns out that life-threatening wound wasn't that bad after all. House Velaryon commits their strength to Rhaenyra, and Luke and Jace are sent as messengers to confirm support from potential allies. Jace, being the elder, is given the more difficult and long journey to secure House Arryn and House Stark, while Luke is given the easier task to secure House Baratheon, whose seat of Storm's End is only across the water. But when Luke arrives at Storm's End, Aemond and Vhagar have beaten him there. Lord Baratheon sends Luke on his way, but Aemond pursues. Aemond just wants to mess with Luke, kind of like vengeance for the bullying he received as a child. However, he soon loses control of Vhagar, who ends up snacking on Luke and Arax. And the season ends with Daemon informing Rhaenyra of her son's death.